It started as a joke, a late-night gathering between friends, fueled by snacks, energy drinks, and the kind of morbid curiosity that only seems to surface at 2 a.m. The idea came from Liam, the self-proclaimed expert on all things paranormal. He had stumbled across an obscure website buried deep in the dark corners of the internet, a forum dedicated to urban legends. There he found the rules of a game. No name, no origin. Just instructions titled, "Summoning the Watcher." "Come on, guys, it's just a stupid game." Liam had grinned, his voice a little too eager. What's the worst that could happen? The others had laughed then, Cara, Jake and Emily, brushing off the tingling unease that settled in their stomachs. They were young, bored, and desperate for a thrill. No one really believed in ghosts or demons. Not yet. They followed the steps exactly. Lights off. 3 candles, a circle of salt. One personal object from each participant placed at the center. The final instruction was the strangest. At 3:13 a.m., close your eyes and knock 3 times on the table. Do not speak until the knocking is returned. The minutes leading up to 3:13 felt like a countdown to something inevitable. The room's temperature seemed to drop, though the windows were closed. The flickering candlelight cast long shadows that danced across the walls. Every creak of the old wooden floor beneath them felt amplified. Jake tried to lighten the mood, making a joke about how they were summoning Uber Eats instead of a ghost. No one laughed. The atmosphere was too thick, too still. When the clock finally struck 3:13, they exchanged nervous glances but leaned forward together. 3 slow knocks echoed from Liam's knuckles against the wooden table. 1, 2, 3. They held their breath. For a moment, there was nothing but the quiet crackle of the flames. Then 3 knocks came back. They were softer, hollow, from somewhere beyond the room. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Jake's eyes darted toward the door, but it was closed, locked. The air suddenly felt heavier, pressing against their chests. "Who did that?" Cara whispered, though no one had moved. Liam's smile faltered. "It's just part of the game, right?" He sounded less sure now. The rules had been clear. Do not speak until the knocking is returned. They had broken the rule. The silence after the returned knocks was suffocating. No one spoke. They could hear each other's shallow breaths, the faint crackle of the candles. The shadows on the walls seemed to stretch, as if something unseen had entered the room. Jake's eyes flicked to the door again, then back to the circle. "Okay, maybe it was the pipes or something. Old houses make noises." No one responded. Cara's fingers trembled as she adjusted the pendant around her neck, her personal item for the ritual. Emily sat frozen, her wide eyes fixed on the center of the circle where the objects lay. Liam's grin had vanished completely, replaced by a strained expression. A minute passed. 2. Then a creak. It came from the hallway outside the room. Slow, deliberate footsteps. One by one. Closer. "It's just a house," Jake muttered. More to himself than anyone else. But they all heard it. The footsteps stopped just outside the door. Liam's eyes flicked toward the salt circle. His voice was barely above a whisper. "The salt! It breaks the barrier if we leave, right?" Cara nodded slowly. "So, we don't leave," Liam finished, his voice cracking. The knocking had been returned. The game had begun. Another creak echoed through the hallway. Then another knock. Not on the table, but on the door. 3 slow taps. None of them moved, Do not speak until the knocking is returned. They had broken the silence once. They wouldn't make that mistake again. The candles flickered violently. Emily's breathing quickened, shallow and ragged. She clutched her bracelet, her personal item, so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Time stretched. Minutes felt like hours. The presence behind the door never left. It simply waited. By dawn, the candles had burned down to pools of wax. The presence was gone, or at least they thought so. The sun's weak light seemed to break the spell, but the room still felt wrong. They swept away the salt and buried the objects in the backyard, just like the instructions said. No one spoke about the knocks, or the footsteps, or the way the shadows had seemed to move on their own. But the game was not over. Kara noticed it first, the feeling of being watched. At first it was subtle, the sensation of eyes lingering on the back of her neck when she walked home at night, the glimpse of something shifting behind the curtains when she turned out the lights. Then others began to feel it too. Jake started locking every window before bed. Emily kept every light on in her apartment. Liam stopped sleeping altogether, pacing the length of his room until dawn. On the third night, Kara saw him, a figure standing across the street beneath the flickering street lamp. Tall, featureless, wrapped in the night itself. It never moved. It never came closer. It only watched. The Watcher. Desperation drove them back to the website. The comment section was buried in warnings. Messages left by those who had played before. Do not play the game if you do not believe. Do not break the silence. Once a watcher is summoned, he must be dismissed. But there were no instructions on how to send him away. Only one chilling line repeated again and again. He watches until he is invited in. They had broken the silence. They had never dismissed him. Now, he was waiting. By the seventh night, Kara was gone. No one knew where she went. Her phone was left charging on her bedside table. The front door was locked. No signs of forced entry. No struggle. But Liam, Jake, and Emily knew. They saw her that night, standing outside beneath the same flickering street lamp, her face pale, her eyes distant. She didn't blink. She didn't move. The Watcher stood just behind her, waiting. They tried to end the game, lighting new candles, drawing fresh salt circles. But nothing worked. The rules had been broken. Some games aren't meant to be played, and some watchers never leave. A week after Kara disappeared, Liam received a message. It came from an unknown number. Do you want to play again? The text was accompanied by an image, a photo taken from outside his window. His bedroom light glowed dimly behind the glass. There was something darker standing in the reflection, watching. Liam dropped the phone. His heart pounded in his chest. The invitation never ended. It only waits for someone foolish enough to answer.